Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Our first animation here is from Sunday, and as the sun set, we can see the infrared satellite imagery here from the overnight hours last night. A couple things I want to point out about this animation. First of all, the frontal boundary that you see draped right in through this area, we could be watching for some tropical development here that thankfully will be moving away from the east coast of the United States. Meanwhile, yesterday, some large thunderstorm complexes that moved through parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia here produced some locally very, very heavy rainfall. Meanwhile, come back to the Midwest here in the Great Plains. A deeper trough that is cutting through this part of the country did initiate. Watch it right in through here. Ready? Right there along that boundary, some big storms last night that produced some hail and isolated tornadoes that moved through parts of the Dakotas and then early this morning into parts of Minnesota. But I'm going to pause this animation right here because I'd like for you to see the extent of the smoke that is still in the western part of the United States. But in addition to that, look to the north of it. You see coming over a large ridge that's just off the northwest coast. Take a look at the direction these clouds up here are moving as I press play. You can see them kind of cascading over the Cascade Mountains here, and they're coming down from the north almost directly to the south. And that's going to be a critical part of our upcoming forecast. Now, before we go much farther, we're about to start a new month, so I want to give you a quick review of the month of August. We're going to start first with cumulative downward solar flux. In other words, when you look at this, these colors represent where we had more sunshine reaching the surface, getting through the atmosphere, reaching the surface, and this would indicate a deficit. Now, take a look at the influence of both cloud cover and smoke across the western United States. The cloud cover primarily came from a couple of tropical systems that brought their moisture and cloud cover into California, Nevada, and southern Oregon. But also the smoke extent also helped extinguish some of the sunlight. Meanwhile, in through this corridor here that I can kind of draw this large wedge over, we did see quite a bit of additional sunlight getting to the ground. So a lot of clear days, and we're going to be discussing where drought set up because of that. In the tropics, where we had our two large systems, so Marco first and then Laura second, we do see some deficit there as well. And we need to be seeing what's happening in the tropics in the coming days too. We're going to get to that in just a few moments. But when we look back on the month of August, it's interesting because in the data, it's going to show up that this particular area was cooler for the month. So when you look at a monthly number, it was certainly cool here in the midsection of the country with quite a bit of heat in the west. But remember, week by week, August gave us a lot of different looks here. For example, just the last week, from the 23rd through the 30th, we were very warm in through this particular corridor here, seeing several days here getting deep into the 90s. I'd like to show you how many days we saw there. And feel free to pause this video and take a closer look here. But this is the number of days from August 1st through August 29th that we saw temperatures exceed 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And so this was quite warm through parts of the northern plains here. It's certainly hot down in Texas, hot in the southwest, but right in through this area in particular, there was quite a bit of warmth during the month here, but it mainly came just in the last week or so, week to 10 days here. Now, days above 95 degrees, this is what the map looks like. So again, while it got hot into the low 90s, getting above that 95 degree threshold, well, it was really reserved here for the high plains in the southern plains and, of course, in the desert southwest. Now, speaking of the desert southwest, take you to Phoenix here, the National Weather Service out of Phoenix. Take a look at this. They've had 50 days or greater so far this year where they have exceeded 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And that eclipses what we had in 2011 where there was 33 days through this point of the year. So extremely hot down here in the desert southwest. Continuing on, let's now talk precipitation. I've been showing you these maps frequently in my videos, and I want to highlight again this particular region in through here, which has missed out on a lot of precipitation from Nebraska and Kansas through parts of northern Missouri, Iowa, southern Wisconsin, and over into northern half of Illinois. Down south here, we filled this in with all of the very heavy rainfall from Laura, and it's been very wet over in parts of the mid-Atlantic into the Carolinas. And of course, we've been talking about the drier conditions that have been developing in the west where we've seen so many fires. Let's take a look at it from the perspective of soil moisture. So this is just the top 100 centimeters, the top 4 inches or so, looking at soil moisture percentile. So this area, once again, right in through here, has really been missed a lot recently by the rainfall, and we're still seeing a deep layer here of soil moisture deficit. We can see that from the beginning of the month, this coming from the CPC here, we of course have seen where Laura went through a major increase in soil moisture here, and also through parts of the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic, a major increase. But there's this corridor in through here, if you just notice, where the deficits have been building in terms of our soil moisture. Even over the last 7 days, it's pretty easy to find the hole here where we missed out on the precip. As the big ridge over the west opened up, we saw lots of storms kind of running over the northern periphery, including a lot of severe weather we'll take a look at in just a few moments. And then, of course, with our tropical systems, look at how heavy the rainfall has been in and around the lower Mississippi River Valley. So just keep this particular picture in mind here, because I want to try to explain to you what happened during the month of August that limited the moisture in this area right in through here. You see, this first map looks at low level in the atmosphere relative humidity from the 1st of August through almost the end. And we see a deficit, some places over 20% in deficit in through this area. And it's extended at times here into the western Corn Belt, into parts of the northern plains of the United States. We can see why. You see that when we look at the low levels of the atmosphere and try to understand the wind flow, in general, the flow of the atmosphere was coming into this direction. So any dry conditions that were in here were being advected or moved into that particular region. And that was basically pumping in more dry air. In addition to that, just looking at the anomalous winds in the low levels of the atmosphere, we can see that in through this particular area, the winds were kind of moving at times in this direction. In other words, there was a little anomalous high pressure cell there in the low levels of the atmosphere. It didn't show up well in the forecast, but it is now here in the reanalysis. And that was a blocking effect on the atmosphere in that particular area. So what we end up seeing was pretty rapid drying in that region. Now don't forget, at points during the month, this area got hit with some pretty nasty storms. I just want to give you a quick update on that derecho event. So what you're looking at here is an NDVI image. And this NDVI image shows you with color here how the crop looked before the derecho. And then as I slide the bar here, this is after. Now as I take this back across, you're going to see again, this is before. And I want to play for you again what the after looked like. So before, and then once we get this going here, I'll play it for you one more time. This is after. Now, when you see these bluer colors, these are areas where the crop is looking worse from space. Now, we normally dry down this time of year and the crop loses its greenness, it loses its chlorophyll. So we start to see the whole image going over toward these cooler colors. But you can see these patches in here where the crop has actually been physically killed. It's damaged so bad that it's really showing up. So I just want to show you that again. As we just take a look back over the month of August at our severe weather, of course, here's that derecho event. But parts of the east really hammered with a lot of severe weather, and also our northern plains and central plains seeing quite a bit of as well. A lot of severe wind reports in the southeast, so this is just kind of an important map to understand where our severe weather was. Nearly 5,000 reports of it during the month of August. Now, getting into our forecast here. In the overnight hours, we were watching quite a few thunderstorm complexes across the U.S., including one, as you see in the radar down here, moving through the north central plains. Sorry, my kind of overlap there on you. But a lot of lightning in these storm complexes that were moving out of the Dakotas into Minnesota. And you can see once again where those storms are. Showers, rain showers with some embedded thunderstorms moving here toward the Appalachian Mountains. And let's see where this is going here in the coming days. Now, our week 2 forecast from last Monday, which means this would be the forecast valid for this week, we were seeing the models really paint a lot of wetter conditions in through this area, with the European backing it up more toward this part of Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri. See it? Well, this is now the new forecast for this week from the WPC. So in other words, this was 2 weeks ago. This is now what we're looking at for this week. And the European model, I think, did a much better job on picking up where the precipitation, heaviest precipitation would be. And the problem is in through this area. While there are chances for storms this week, it is not going to be, the kind of rain that we would want to get maybe right at the end of the season to help finish a crop. Let's take a look at the reasons why that is. You remember at the beginning when I showed you the winds kind of coming like this across the northwest? This ridge right through here might be a critical part of our flow pattern throughout much of this week. You see, we have one trough, a lead trough that's out ahead. That was part of the setup for the strong thunderstorms yesterday and overnight hours here in the northern plains getting over toward Minnesota. But it's going to be this trough that comes kicking through here over this week that is going to be the setup for the wetter conditions over this section of the United States. But that upstream ridge is going to send our jet stream into Alaska, and it's really going to bring it down like that for much of the next week to maybe even 15 days. So let's take a look at what that means in terms of our precipitation patterns. Here in the near term, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what the Storm Prediction Center is looking out for. So today it's going to be this broad sector in through here that we have our greatest concern about severe weather. So if we play forward the high resolution NAM, this stops early this morning, so we've seen this thunderstorm complex already, and here's the rain that's moving into the Appalachian Mountains out of Kentucky and into West Virginia. As we play this forward in through midday today, what we see is a lot of scattered storms in through this particular area where we already know we're watching for the heavier rainfall. The broader trough is sweeping in through this area. Remember, it's coming out of Idaho into Wyoming here. But watch what happens as I go from 5 p.m. on Monday into early morning hours on Tuesday. Could see multiple thunderstorm complexes moving in and around the Red River Valley into the overnight hours. And then as we work our way into Tuesday morning, afternoon, and evening, we will once again be watching for this area right in through here for scattered storms that could be getting into parts of the eastern Corn Belt here, but also coming into parts of Texas is what the models are picking up on. And maybe getting some heavier rainfall in through this area. So that's where we're watching this particular region in the day on Tuesday. Putting it all together, this is from the GFS model looking at total accumulated precipitation through Wednesday evening. So this is basically our next 3 days. And we can see the model has really identified this corridor as having the heaviest rainfall right in through here. We can see as that lead wave ejects coming into Ontario some heavy rainfall as well. Now, this will be the area that we're going to watch most carefully because the GFS model has heavy rainfall in through this area coming from some of these local thunderstorms, but the European model doesn't see it. Notice that? It has still the heavy precip coming out of Texas and Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, this area, hitting Arkansas once again, and then favoring over here into Tennessee, Kentucky, over toward the Appalachian Mountains. But it is a different look than what the GFS is suggesting. Now, as we get into the second half of this week, take a look at what the upper level flow pattern is going to do. So this is jet stream level winds. As I play this forward, there's that ridge. See it? And the flow is going to come around that ridge just like this. Now, do you notice there's a secondary ridge in this area, and the flow comes around it just like that? You see, as we continue to play this forward, watch it again with me here. You see that those are the main pieces of the flow as we work our way here toward middle of September. And as they adjust and move and this deeper trough moves in, it's really going to change our precipitation and temperature patterns. So with one ridge here, let's draw that in black, with one ridge there and a second ridge here and troughs cascading over them, we see that the flow is really going to be concentrated right into this area. This area will be drier, and this area will have the moisture in it. So you can see that over here, the high precipitable water air there, the drier air on this side. But that means that we're going to focus in this corridor wetter weather as we look in the day 4 through 7 time period. So this is Thursday through Sunday. You can see the GFS is capturing that, and so is the European model. We can also see with the jet stream flow still in Canada that we're going to watch this area here in both models for having wetter than average conditions as well. Scattered storms in the southeast, but dry, really dry in the central plains, getting over toward the western part of the United States as we look at that Thursday through Sunday time period. Now, getting out beyond this, remember that ridge, look at how prominent it is here in the flow, both in the European and in the GFS. And I'm starting to get concerned in both models because we're developing a low here with the ridge to the north of it. You can see the low here with the ridge to the north. And that is a blocking pattern, which means we could keep this trough here and this trough there. It's in both models, see, for a lot of our ways into the middle part of this month. So remember, that pattern, bringing those troughs in, does want to paint this area wet. But remember, to be wetter than average in the month of September does not mean that it's going to be like wetter than average if it was May or June. So this is a time period of the year where it's typically quite dry. We also notice that the models tend to paint a broader sector, remember, for week 2, and then it tends to become a bit more narrow as we get closer to that time period. So we're going to watch this pattern set up for possibly bringing in more precipitation into that area. The wild card is going to be the tropics. We're right now watching several areas designated here by the National Hurricane Center. Several waves coming off of Africa that we've given generally a 30 to 40% chance of development. We've got an 80% chance that something could develop as it moves over toward the Yucatan Peninsula. And once it gets here, just remember, should the flow bring that into the Gulf of Mexico, we've got plenty of warm water still in that area to develop a system. And again, the one we were watching at the beginning of this animation moving here offshore, not of major concern, but we got quite a bit to be watching here. So where does the European ensemble put things? Well, several waves moving across the Atlantic all need to be watched over the next 10 plus days. And the particular system that is here in the Caribbean, remember, I want you to be watching it about 7 days from now, well, maybe toward the end of this week, getting over this part of Central America or the Yucatan, and just what might happen should it get into the Gulf of Mexico. So that's where we're going to leave this, and we're going to give you updates each day this week of what's going on in the tropics. From there, though, I'd like to get toward a discussion on temperatures. Today, Monday, you can see the presence of the broader trough in the central United States, but watch the pattern shift toward a ridge over the west and a trough in the central part of the U.S. So Monday's high temperatures, let's get this playing, and here's Tuesday. Getting from Tuesday into Wednesday, you can already see the warmth building here. And we do get a day here in the middle of the week where we start to see, well, those 80s and lower 90s showing back up again. But as I go from Wednesday into Thursday and then into Friday, that's when the broader trough sweeps in here. Remember, we saw it earlier, and the ridge builds into the west. So look at the heat coming back out into the western United States. We will see above average temperatures along the southeast, but as I go from Friday into Saturday and then into Sunday, you see once again that pattern being reinforced by more troughs sweeping into this part of the United States. So from there, let's take a look at the 6 to 10 day time period. The models are really favoring, again, that blocking ridge that's going to be sitting off the west coast and the troughs that come over the top of it here into the central part of North America. And we see the cooler weather here, maybe at times being 5 to up to 10 degrees cooler than average in the midsection of the continent. As we look out to 11 to 15 day, the models are not allowing that pattern to break down, which is why I'm suggesting we're blocking things up here with that high over low just off the coast. So what does that mean? Warmth west with cooler weather coming into the central U.S. Concern there might become over an early frost. Well, what you're about to see here is a quick animation showing you the probability of getting a frost over the next 15 days. And that gets us all the way to September the 15th. Just to show you here, much of our frost threat will be at higher elevation. So this is the probability of getting a temperature below 32 Fahrenheit. I just stopped here on the 9th of September, and you see, oh, wait a minute, I saw a flash here in parts of southern Saskatchewan, but that means that there's like a 10% chance that we get to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Seeing some overnight lows in the 40s? Yeah, we could see that here in this part of of Canada, but the probability of a frost showing up at this point, I don't think is in the works, okay? Only at higher elevation, as you see here. So to finish this discussion, I want to tell you some stuff we're going to be talking about on Wednesday with the longer range. We've developed a bit of a standing wave in the flow of the tropics over the Indian Ocean. That's going to suppress the flow here over South America. And the trade winds are getting stronger, and we're seeing better development here of our La Nina. So to give you one update on something we've been discussing for a while, could this mean a delay in the start of the monsoon here in this part of Brazil? Well, the map you're looking at over there on the right represents the next 30 days looking at precipitation anomalies. And it appears that the next 30 days are going to continue to favor much drier than normal conditions. So I think it's an important story that we need to be watching here, and I'll keep you updated with our long range update coming out on Wednesday. Hope you all have a great week. We'll talk to you again very soon. Thank you.